So let me call to order the meeting number 22 of the AFC for fiscal year 21. Without objection, I would like unanimous approval to waive the reading of the governor's orders since it's printed on our agenda, which is also posted to the website. Any objections? Okay, so waived. So we have.
Question, is it okayed by the powers that be?
I was at a committee meeting 2 nights ago where they waived it without any difficulty.
Lovely.
Okay. I don't think we'll get in any trouble.
Probably help our ratings.
It probably will help our ratings, yes. Anyway, so tonight's main agenda item is a look at the school budget again to revisit. Amber and Kristen and Irene, thank you for being with us. We appreciate you taking the time to do this. I think we all agree that it's a good time to circle back to it as we're getting closer to the town meeting. So I'm going to turn it over to Amber. And by the way, we're going to wait on the minutes until after the presentations and the review of the school budget. Okay. All right. So Amber, you have a presentation.
I do.
Beth is going to have to take me through allowing the screen share.
So yeah, I need opportunity to share the screen and then we'll dive right in.
Okay, let's see.
All right. It's really good to see you all. It is really good to have the meeting and start to warm up on the budget again. I mean, we work on it so early and then, we would have already passed it by now and be working on implementation and, closure of the year stuff. So the delay in town meeting, it's nice that it's going to be earlier than it was last year, but it definitely merits that we all kind of go back through the exercise of remembering the process by which it was developed. And all right, let's see if I can share. So can I try to share my screen now?
Yes.
All right. Can you guys see it? All right. So we really, I think, have a good routine as a group. I appreciate the questions, welcome them. Irene and I together, and Kristen to speak in as needed. Hope to be able to have an informal conversation with you and answer your questions. I think we're always clear that it is our goal to satisfy the range of questions you have and gain your approval on town meeting floor for the budget that we're presenting to the community. So I'm going to just get my screen ready so I can see you guys as I present at the same time. So I'm going to utilize the presentation that I used when we met in, gosh, it would have been February, I think, or March. It was a while ago. And I modified it a little bit. And the goal is just to step you back through the framework of the budget and then to answer questions. And then I have a section where I just post a little bit on each article and we'll talk about those. I did send a brief kind of succinct memo that just kind of did a question and answer on some of the pieces that had come before us returning. And I wanted to make sure that you had some of that data. And Irene put together a brief memo on the history of the Armstrong playground because there had been a question about that. So we put those together for you and you can review those. I just think given that we're in Zoom, it's a lot easier for you to look at your own content and then for me to just manage the screen around these discussions, but we can certainly talk about all of that. So in terms of where we're going to go, we'll look at revisiting 21, because I think unless you really remember and understand the path of the trajectory for what we did in FY21, it's probably the most serious impact truly to the development of FY22. And then of course, the ongoing layers of COVID impact to budgeting, to the deficit and to the gain based upon how the year is progressing for us. And we'll talk about that with regard to impact on the softball article. So then we'll look at capital items. I think we'll break it down and talk about the budget first and then roll to capital items and open it all up for general discussion. We always work with goals as the core framework when we're developing the budget. We try to take kind of a zero-based budgeting approach. We always ask everybody to start from their base and develop what they need. The two that we point out to you guys is really we remain very focused on managing costs and impacts when we can and being strategic in how we leverage funds, but also in how we plan forward in our thinking, having not just like a year-to-year vision, but trying to project forward. We also always reflect the budget history. You notice for FY21, we mark that budget, the 2.97, which was voted unanimously, was far stretch from the original 4.31 that we brought before you heading into pre-COVID. So we'll do a little memory lane on that. In terms of the budget for FY21, it's important to remember that we were coming into that budget, which is the budget we're in now, really facing the first tier of salary contracts, which was a substantial negotiation, and the transportation contract, which was $1 million. Working collaboratively with you, school committee really wanted to absorb that impact because it just felt like a big hit. It brought the original budget of this particular round of FY21 up to over 5%. And instead, we used some one-time offsets and some strategic planning to lower that. That was all before COVID, where we then had a whole other round of budgeting where we pulled out additional plans around cuts. And then we also managed the tuition-free kindergarten warrant article, leveraging transportation savings. So that was all kind of the framework of work we've done together over the last year and exemplifies kind of the budget that we're living currently. And then, sorry, my screen is doing weird things. Let me just get myself settled here. Sorry. So when you look at that, you saw that this budget ballooned with the transportation contract up to 5.38. Working with you guys and the things I've just revisited, we pulled it down to 4.31%. That really constituted pulling about $560,000 out of the budget to get that mitigation impact on the transportation. And I think when you look at that, it's important to remember that the mileage and the kindergarten midday bus were true cuts that never needed to come back. They were actually reframed, pushing on the contract and lowering it. Irene did some good work there with Leah looking at the mileage, and they ended up kind of like recognizing that we didn't need that much, and we cut the contract by that much. The technology was a true cut to budget work that we do, and leveraging that 100,000 in circuit breaker we usually hold on to for out of district tuitions are real kind of impacts to the way we manage budget. And then whenever we use a one-time offset of revolving funds, you impact your base and you can't make that up substantially. You need to over time, but that was the impact of what we did to kind of come forward with the 4.31. We had gained your initial support for that and had worked with you as we were planning on heading into town meeting. I think the numbers of the cuts are what's important to remember. Then after COVID hit, we did another more substantive return. This was a very hard hit to core budget. It involved cutting people and curriculum, and you see the technology took a very large hit at 150,000. We also deferred a lot of facilities work at the 61,000 and were able to reduce that budget further in collaboration with you in the town, recognizing the potential loss of revenue because of COVID, which actually did come to fruition, and it was a good thing that we worked on that. So, that meant that we brought in the FY21 budget at the 2.97 and absorbed, all of those cuts. So, and as we look towards remembering then this, again, our discussions around FY22, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. We're really not sure how budgeting is going to look, where revenue losses are going to be. We worked really hard on this budget, came in with a level service budget, and it was level against the COVID cuts. So we didn't add those back in. We worked with those cuts remaining in place as true cuts. We then came in with no new positions, the main things that were being faced was, again, this was the largest percentage increase in the salary implementation contract, and then contracted services, which was not huge amounts of money, but was money that we were going to see in increase. And then I added back in 50,000 for technology, given that we had had a round of, I think what was a total $210,000 in cuts over the reductions we made. And then we looked at the tuition pre-kindergarten and worked to leverage staging the impact of that addition of what would have been 13 positions to be over 2 years as opposed to 1. A lot because we were very concerned about what was going to happen with Chapter 70 and kind of unsure what was going on with enrollment. We'll talk more about that. So when you look at that, you see then the overlay of that into those numbers. You see the 50,000 in technology. You see the gap in circuit breaker of the differential of the 100,000, and you see the transportation contract increase of the 52,000. So you can see the level of service across all other items, and that was 190,000 that kind of was base increase to the budget. So really the big impacts that really came into our base budgeting was that circuit breaker gap, the 8 positions that we had in salary for kindergarten, which we anticipated a couple of years ago were going to need to come in as new positions, and then the 50,000 in technology. So you see that base of the 857 riding in the budget that came forward. I'm going to skip the circuit breaker slide. We can come back to it if we need it. So when I was developing the superintendent's recommendation, the initial recommendation at the first rollover sat at 5.6%, representing everything that I've kind of walked you through. You see that 6.35% increase there represents the contract rollover at its largest increase year and the 8 kindergarten positions. So that number was pretty staggering in terms of just the school committee's feelings about that, given that we were looking at fiscal unknowns due to the pandemic. So before I made final recommendations, taking the feedback I'd gotten on the first round from school committee, worked more with the town and looking at recognizing those unknown conditions and not sure what was going to happen with COVID emergency funds. We really tried to be strategic. That meant that I went back into the budget and I cut these other pieces and leveraged an offset from a revolving account at 150,000 and took another 400,000 out of the budget. And that brought us in. You can see then we leveraged those cuts across the different parts of the budget. Like I used that 400,000 to mitigate the gap in circuit breaker. You can see that you can compare those tables on your own and see that we basically just applied the 400,000 cut, and we're able to bring the budget down to the 4.9% that we brought forward to you for discussion and that we've revisited a couple times. So in framing where we are, we're almost done. I think it's important. And again, I hate it when I restate things for people that I know follow money well. So please don't feel that I'm acting like you don't get it. I just think we really wanted to revisit where we were. So I'll reiterate. The core items of concern is that, we've cut a lot of money in order to come in at that percentage, some using leveraged one-time offsets, which is the same as Christy did when she did that $700,000 tax offset in free cash. And it sets you back over time against your budgeting. And we've been very clear that we attempt not to do that, but we're also in kind of pretty unknown times. We've been clear that we need recovery over time of some of those revolving accounts, which we use for offset projects and then also for all of the base services across the buildings annually to lower the budget. So that's kind of the framework of where we are and what we brought forward to you. And I guess I would think it would be productive for us to open it up for conversation and answer questions just currently around the budget that we've proposed to bring forward to town meeting. So I guess I would open it up for conversation, questions. We'll do the best we can. If we can't answer something right now, we'll certainly get back to you right away. But we should be able to. We should know this budget pretty well at this point.
So we're going to do, just raise your hands if you have a question. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to see it on the participant screen.
I can see Paul. You want to hop in?
Okay, you can. Okay. Paul?
Sure. I just had a quick one. All the COVID expenses that you can are kind of off the book, so to speak, right? Not for both this year and next. Those are being reimbursed by the special funds from the state and federal, right?
Yeah, yeah. And yes, and currently, and Irene, feel free to hop in. Irene is working regularly with Leah in the town around the CARES funding of that 1.6 million, which was an initial installment that was received. And then we had well over the 850,000, which was direct to the schools, which we used as first before going to the CARES money. And we've done all of the offsets of any additional staffing. Like there's over 18 positions that we had to hire in order to run a dual platform. All of that's on COVID funding. It's not in any of the space budgeting. Accurate, Irene? Is that accurate? Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Let's see, hop in. I'm sorry, I can't.
Melanie?
What is it? Oh,
Melanie's got her hand up.
great. Melanie, hop in.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. First, is there going to be any, if any, unused funds from the 2021 budget?
There may well be. I mean, currently, as we step forward into, we always have a minor, I mean, it varies from year to year, but we always have a base return at the end of the year when we close out the books to the town. I mean, it's been, across the trajectory of my time. 1 year we returned $1 million. 1 year we returned 16,000. So again, against year to year expenditures, yes. And Leah's always, tracking that money as well and working with Irene. We try to forecast, but typically over the last several years, and I think some of that's the impact of a lot of the internal cuts we've been making and moving things around to run a tighter budget, we've returned very, very little money. This year, it really is a moving target right now. You'll see when we talk about the softball article that we're going to take transportation funds and kill that article and do it internally. So we're going to pull it. And I can talk more about that in depth.
So like in sub hours, that seems an extraordinarily high number. Is that a place where you foresee that there was a surplus?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, Irene can speak to that. I mean, I think that she'll run that out through the end of the year. And we have like several maternity leaves that will be pushed against that between now and closure. And those are expensive. I think we have 6 women going out actually on maternity leave between now and the end of the year. So it will go down, but where it will end up, it certainly will have some savings, which we would then leverage against, other expenditures if possible, or return to the town.
And on the, with regard to enrollment, did we decrease after the first of the year? Or did those numbers that you initially presented stay the same?
We're stable as of now, and enrolling our kindergartners for next year at a pretty high rate. Looks like we'll come in with potentially needing an extra section. But when we presented to you guys, I think we're going to see an increased enrollment for the fall. We're hovering just under 3,900 now. So I think, we've increased in enrollment across the span of the year. I think I don't have the exact number. I can send it to you guys later, but we anticipate opening up in the fall about where we were, which will be probably hovering around 4,000.
Okay. And then I'll make this my last question, I guess.
No, go ahead. I love your
I have a lot of them, but there's some studies out there showing that with regard to children, they're losing ground. So the fact that you're gonna cut summer programs, does that seem like?
That's so kind of you. We are leveraging a good amount of COVID recovery funds, and we will host a summer academy. So actually, we will run a range of robust programming. Sherry maintained the extended year, and she felt she could maintain programming and give us that initial cut. But this year in particular, we have a good amount of COVID funds, which it's that ESSER 2. We pulled on the ESSER 2 money to pay for anticipated academy work this summer. You can't use it for existing programming. So it's the extended year programming, the cut you're referencing that Sherry provided, she can still meet programming needs based upon that cut.
Okay.
We'll be adding programming for a range of other students so this summer.
Have we forecasted how many kids we think we're going to have to go back and potentially repeat grades?
I don't think that we'll have a large circle of repeat. I think that because one, I think our staff made incredibly strategic decisions about what core to teach. And our kids have had school since the start of the year, even in that hybrid rotation. So we didn't face some of the delays in terms of starting that other districts did. Certainly it's been aspects of it have been a diminished experience. Certainly, but I don't think we'll have many repeats at all. I think that we'll have layers of service next year for recovery work with additional tutoring support and other types of interventions that we're hoping to leverage ESSER 3 funds to provide.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Anyone else? So Amber, I have a question.
Sure, hop in.
Fiscal 22 is aimed at providing a level service budget. And in your budget book, you requested that a commitment to restoring the cuts that were made in response to the needs of COVID. What quality has been taken out of programming as a result of those cuts that you made, if any? And I guess I'm trying to reconcile the fact that we're going to use that fiscal 22 is going to be a level service budget, but yet you're saying there's quality that needs to be restored. So did we lose quality in 21? And
No, that's a great question. So, I mean, certainly my job as superintendent is to make very strategic cuts, or as we said, long range view for what we can manage in the short term and the long term against the needs of the town in our larger goals of being fiscally restrained. I mean, I think we've all been very invested in recognizing that, while I've certainly heard, again, at a high level of support, which I appreciate, that providing quality program is an expectation in Westborough and part of what taxpayers also hope to receive and why they move to the community. When you look back at the cuts, if we just think about programming impact, you have Melanie's push on the summer programming cut, which we've talked a little bit about. The cuts around trash bill and electricity, I know we can survive those for the year. The cuts that really we want to look at over time are, I'm going to back up to those. It's really looking at some of the positions that we eliminated. We hired the custodian. That position we delayed. The $27,000 was a delay to a January hire. If you remember that, it was also a strategy that was used by the town. And so that position has been hired. I think the recovery of loss of programming, if we don't put that money back, would fall in technologies, given the ongoing strategic innovation that it takes to keep up with that. The administrative salary cut, we're working very hard not to return and to use other types of strategic planning for that salary. We've certainly received some pushback on some of those changes from faculty and from families, but we're going to run the course on that for a while and see if our thoughts on more innovative ways of leveraging the admin we have continues to be appropriate for program levels. And I think that the teacher salaries that we cut, was a sped position that we felt we could go down in. So at this point, I'm going to focus heavily on the technology cuts being an area that, and if we neglect facilities year in and year out, we get back to where we were when I arrived, which was a deficit of facilities, which was concerning in terms of maintenance care and enrollment planning. But I think the one that you'll see come back in over time is probably one sped position potentially, and maybe a part-time admin. We're really assessing it right now to look at the impact, to be honest, Mike. And if we can avoid bringing it back, we will. I mean, that's a commitment we have to keeping our budget tight.
Okay, I just want to be clear. The only, I get the technology piece and I get the facilities piece, but I just want to make sure that there have been no quality depletions in education.
I mean, I respect the question. I mean, again, I think that I certainly weigh these out and spent a lot of time with the director of student services, Dr. Sherry Stevens, as we looked at this. And when we rotated out one of those admin positions in the special ed department and one of the teaching positions, you know, SPED is always a moving target anyway against numbers, enrollments, and complexities of kids. I mean, it's always a moving target. These positions, I believe, there are people that would articulate that they get less time and attention because that admin isn't there, but we believe that we're still meeting quality service expectations. So I think that we did a good job in what we selected, and you know, I think if something has to come back in, it would be discussed very transparently with you as we look to FY23.
And we've had our special ed kids in the classrooms since, you know, from the cuts. From
the
start of the cuts. Yeah.
Yes. No, we definitely have we have a very inclusive philosophy. Students should be, you know, accessing their regular ed opportunities with specialized instruction support, and students that have unique learning needs need robust programming across their years. And again, we just had a special ed program review and received no recommendations, which is really unbelievable that her program came through a state program review with no recommendations for corrections. So I believe Westborough continues to provide really good programming.
Does anybody else have any questions? Thank you, Amber, for answering those. Any other questions? Walter?
Yes, I wanted to check in on, does the fall plan, I know it's pulled back, but is there still any provision for remote for maybe students with, some reason they can't be in person?
Yeah, no, that's.
Is it all back in school?
So great question, Walter. Right now, this budget is planning for a normal return in terms of accessing all faculty that have been pushed home to remote will be returning to full-time in-class instruction and can carry in-person class load. The state will probably require for a very small number of students, is what they're telling us, students who have really well-documented medical exemptions for why they would not be able to return to in-person learning. And the state is clear that they are looking to close out remote instruction as an option and return to in-person public schooling. That process is still to be defined by the state. And there's a lot of creative discussion going on across districts, because I think medical exemptions such like that would be kind of random, where they would hit across grade levels of need, and could be like, you could have 2 second graders across the whole district. How do you take a 9th grader at a high school and provide a whole program for them? Like, it's going to be a very random kind of experience in terms of the type of programming they would require. So we're actually looking at developing some collaboratives where we pool districts together and work collaboratively. So based upon it, how it emerges from the state, the superintendents are starting to develop a range of scenarios for providing for it thoughtfully for good programming, but with limited, budget impact. And then all of us are holding anticipated ESSER 3 funds for managing that impact. I mean, certainly a good amount of money has been committed forward through those funds. And right now, because they're allowing them to be used through FY24, there's not an unreasonable rush to spend them. It's more important to think about strategic programming and then know what dollars you have to put in place for it. So we've pulled ESSER 2 money, as I said to Melanie, for some summer programming, but we've held some of it, and we'll be using that and then ESSER 3 for any staffing needs. So we'll just have to wait and see. It's hard to know. I mean,
Dynamic world.
yeah, it's a pretty exhausting, I have to say, I mean, we have a pretty strong team. They're hard workers. Just the kind of constant action-based programming to try to respond to these moment-to-moment changes has been, it's exciting in some ways, but it's exhausting because it hasn't let up. I mean, just trying to design summer programming when you aren't even sure you can get staff to teach. I mean, they're exhausted. They need a break. So, you have the state wanting all this robust summer programming, and you have faculty who are exhausted, who are looking towards summer to rotate out and rest. So they spent last summer designing a way to get open, so it's going to be really interesting, but, everybody's ready for it to dissipate a little.
Anyone else?
Jody.
Yeah, I just put my hand up. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm just looking at the chart you have up in front of us, Amber. A good presentation, by the way. Thank you. We see the 4.94% increase, which is down from your first number, 5.6%, which I was very glad to see. We love to see numbers down towards 2 or 3%. But I look at your salary line, which, as you should tell us here, is 83% of your budget. And there's a 6% increase there. So 2.7 million of the increase comes in the salary line. But this is the first year of a renegotiated contract. So we have increases coming online this year. Is that what would explain that?
Yeah, this year, actually, we're in this year, FY21. You remember transportation and the first year one salary was the big driver of FY21. And then in FY22, I think, Irene, FY22 is where we hit the largest increase because it has a 0.5 added on the last day of school this year. Then there's a 2.5 and a step, and they step at 2%. So that's where you're coming up with that 6%. And that's, remember, we talked a lot about how would we close the gap we had built. And, this is that work. One of the other pieces to that, though, Jody, is that the other thing that pushes that number up was that anticipated 13 kindergarten positions, which would have come in as new money. And we knew that then the Chapter 70 money was going to go up, and it was going to be a one-time hit to kind of pull that into budget. We've broken that into 2. We're carrying seven positions in this hit, and 6 are remaining on the revolving account for one more year. So we could break it out.
Yep. Well, thanks for that. It's pretty clear why we're pushing up against 5% here with the pressure on the salary line.
Yeah,
and that is what it is.
Yeah, sometimes though we can, gain other offsets and other things during the year. But right now, I mean, we've done what we can within this budget, given the other range of cuts we took. I mean, typically some of the cuts that we took around those COVID cuts, that 700,000, might have been things we would have staged out over a couple of years or done something different to pull that number down. You know, we work each year. I mean, that rollover year over year always has the salary number high, and we work on doing offsets with the revolving accounts in terms of tuitions and things. But that's just being dried up right now because we already did all those other cuts.
Yep.
So I don't think you're going to see an annual rollover necessarily. Next year, you'll probably see a similar rollover because we got to pull in those 6 positions we held on the kindergarten revolving to break it in half. So, if we had rolled 13 positions in this hit, that would have been bad. So we really wanted to spread it out, given that the town and all of us will be recovering financially until we get a more stable rhythm post-COVID.
Okay, great. Thanks for that.
Anyone else? Paul?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, and to be fair, a way to think about it at least would be to take out, I figure if it's 700 or 900,000, whatever that offset's going to be in chapter 70 for the kindergarten, to kind of take it out of that 2.7 million, and whatever the percentage would be, I guess would be, probably 0.5% or something.
Yeah, that comes in as town revenue, right?
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I think the other thing is, you remember too, I mean, that percentage is driven higher by the fact that we lowered the base amount of 21 by over 1.6 million. So if we were back at our original budget of what we had approved coming into town meeting, that percentage would be lower. So again, this is what happens when we're doing those one-time offsets, you leveraging those same thing Christy's been talking about in her budget against that 700,000. Like until you're always working against that built-in deficit now against how your percentages are going to be that much higher. So there's some of that at play too. Originally, I had ran some really weird numbers to look at. I mean, you guys can follow all of it, where I was like, if we had that original number, what would the percentage be? If we had this original number, what would the percentage be? And you can see the inflation of the percentage against that lower FY21 number. I don't do that with many other people other than maybe FinCom. It just confuses people, but there is that at play as well.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, why don't we move on to the articles, Amber?
Great. So thank you. This is I hope this is what you wanted to accomplish. I'm enjoying this conversation. Your questions are always so thoughtful. And again, if there's more later, beyond just the budget, just learning the budget and questions were always available. So the high school softball field, again, you saw the notes that I sent you that followed up on some of the questions you've asked. I'll lead with the end and then we can back up. We are going to leverage COVID-based opportunities. These don't usually exist for us because of the fact that lane change, Irene always carries an average of, 3 years, Irene, for what lane changes cost us. So when we build the budget, we always build a lane change rollover, and that's for all of the coursework where teachers take lane change based upon bumping up. You always step up on steps, and the only other way you move is master's level coursework to change a lane. Annually, we carry 140-ish for people that are moving through those bumps. Nobody took courses this year. We just unanticipated. I mean, people could have taken a lot of courses because they had nowhere to go on vacations, or they could have, everything was online. We weren't quite sure how we would cut. We offered a little bit of an extension. We still, at that rollover, and then out of district PD, which I didn't go anywhere. All the stuff all just sitting there. So that 140,000, we've worked on the books this all week and part of last week looking at all of this. So as we did last year, we took transportation savings and we crushed the kindergarten warrant article and leveraged that without needing the warrant article. We all considered that creative solution. So given the fact that we have two pieces here, Irene also can speak about the transportation savings, but 70,000 available in transportation because we're paying, what are we paying, 70% on each dollar? What are we doing?
So on the beginning of the school year, we were still remote. We negotiated that we would only pay 50% of the contract cost. And then we would pay from that point on 78% of the remote days. So we've saw a savings in transportation with the new company.
So we will take those and basically move that 210 forward. It's logical for a couple reasons, which is typically you can't do this because you can't like invent a project and go out and bid it and have the dollars and have it ready to go within the year of expenditure. But we've already prepped this project. It should have already been voted at town meeting. It's got solid numbers for bid work. It's got somebody lined up to do that work. And we can utilize these funds by the end of the school year and complete that work. So, Friar's ready to go and has looked at that project and the bid works available to us, so we'll do it. Similarly to how the kindergarten warrant article could be leveraged. So I think that's very good news. We certainly know that aspects of the discussion, I'm certainly well aware, as you guys are, that we had a whole range of really good, robust discussion about the softball field. And I think that I want to make sure that, I continue to represent to you that we feel strongly that these types of improvements are part of budget and are part of town expenditures that need to be anticipated being seen. If we didn't have this offset, we would have pushed to bring this forward. As capital, again, chose it to be rotated in their new process, within this year. There was a lot of questions around fundraising, and so I just want to speak to that. We are very committed to utilizing fundraising and looking for creative offsets. There is also a capacity and breadth in a community that you have to know and understand. And the level of fundraising that we did to do the fields is kind of unprecedented in this community. I don't know whenever a project was done where that amount of money was raised and then used to cut costs and impact at the town level. We were very committed to that and wanted the sense of community that it brought to us. But we don't carry fundraisers. Like, that's an exhausting amount of work to leverage. Most people, private schools, you carry a team that does that kind of fundraising for you. This is work that we did, but we don't have the capacity to turn around and roll out and raise $200,000 or $300,000 easily, or people would do it more often. There's also a capacity in the community, and right now, a lot of the organizations we would have gone to aren't making money themselves. And so, the leverage for fundraising right now is very, very limited. We're giving them time to recover. If anything, we're trying to spend money towards them to demonstrate our commitment to a lot of the organizations that have helped us over the years. I do think that we have a capacity to fundraise, and the town is committed to it. And you will see projects in the future where we'll leverage setting aside, as we did in the past, some of our revolving accounts where we articulate to you that we're setting aside $50,000 from this account to work towards a project. We've got a couple that we'll look towards in the future where we will do that with you and think it through. And we're happy to do fundraising when we can kind of plan for it. All of us needed recovery time from that fundraising. It was hard work. So I guess that's just the comment I want to make around fundraising. It's not that we're not committed to it, but if it was easy, more people would do it. It's hard work. And I think that the town is very generous, but there's a lot of people pulling on the same group of people. So I don't know, do you want to, so I guess I would stop there and just say, we're very pleased to be able to rotate this one out and have it. I already called Leah, the school committee has talked about it. We feel good to bring this forward and in time to pull it from the warrant, which also makes town meeting cleaner. So that's where it stands right now.
Amber, is there going to be a softball season this year?
Yeah, we've played every season. One of the few seasons that girls got to play last year and that was allowable was softball. And a lot of girls, our signups are very high right now down at middle school and up. And actually for a while, we were really concerned that the feeder loop for softball was dying out, that a lot of girls weren't playing softball anymore. But actually we have a robust set of signups and it looks like the pipeline coming forward, 6th grade and forward, is looking really good. So that's very exciting. And yes, we will have a season. They start right after vacation.
Okay, but with respect to the work on the field, you're going to do it during the current school year, correct?
He'll hit it hard, and we'll start planning forward with him so that we can have him accomplish it. So.
Okay. All right. And
probably right after school closes.
is there a fall season?
There is a fall season, but not softball. I mean, we'll have to, we'll manage, that field will have to close. And whenever we do this, it has impact. But I don't think it's work that will take a really, really long time. But that's stuff we'll just have to figure out.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions on this? Okay.
All right.
Let's move on
So,
to the next article.
all right. So next one, the high school gym partition. Again, we're feeling really good about getting this accomplished. We talked about our concerns that this was no longer maintenance supported by the companies that have worked on it because they consider it unsafe. We've talked about the fact that we wanted a hard bid number, and you can see that number had been at 295, almost 297, and it's a hard number in the warrant at 245.9. They have spec'd that out, and they've picked out materials, and we have a company ready to install. So that feels like good work waiting for the vote of town meeting, and then would be implemented. Irene, do you have anything to add to that? I'm trying to just think about what's been updated since we last presented it. Okay.
So, I
Questions?
mean, we're doing behind the scenes in anticipation of this being approved. So selecting, what it will look like, colors and so forth, so that once it's approved, we can move quickly on it.
Yeah.
Jody?
Yep. No, I don't, is my hand still up? I don't mean for it to
Yeah.
be. Nope,
Melanie?
no questions.
Okay. Melanie? You're on mute, Melanie. Unmute.
Now she's
Can you hear
frozen.
me now?
There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. Any warranties that come with this partition and scheduled maintenance?
So typically there are warranties and maintenance, routine maintenance on it. I would be very surprised if it didn't. We request that. So the manufacturer usually brings on that warranty. I don't know the year of the warranty. I could look that up for you and give that to you after the meeting.
Yeah, it has, and we do regularly scheduled maintenance of that work in the summer, which is why we've had this kind of circular interaction with this company that hasn't wanted to come and serve it, and we've been kind of like dragging them in to make sure that they do the maintenance on it. So we definitely keep a maintenance contract for any scope beyond what we can do on our own.
The cost is not material, is it, Irene, for the maintenance contract? It's not a material cost with respect to the total cost of the project?
No.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to.
All right. So this article, I was really hoping Steve would be here because he's best at discussing this. So if I make errors and pieces of this, it's because truthfully, I have to say, I laugh about it to a certain extent, but in the 7 years I've been here, I feel like I've done nothing but building projects. As we've looked at the work of the community and its growth over the last 10 years, it's pretty staggering. And I think, we've managed to respond well. So this is the clean write-up. Christy did a great job working with Steve on this project. Steve Durrett, the chair of school building committee, who had kind of overseen aspects of this project work. And I think, as you can see, it's clear. I think it's clearly written now. And the number is substantially different than where we thought we would be with the advantageous bid. And it would require then the 171, and it moved to a free cash article as opposed to a borrow, which is, really good news for kind of long-term debt impact for us. And given that now, again, I also feel it's advantageous. I mean, I called Leah. She certainly felt good that $200,000 of anticipated cost out of free cash has now been mitigated. So this article comes in leveraging funds that have already been bid and appropriated, and this is the difference needed to complete the sprinklers at Hastings. That then unlocks a bunch of summer work for article money that we have sitting to do the HVAC system, which we knew we wanted to do the internal repair and replacement of the classroom-based HVAC systems. And we couldn't come in and do that work until after we got this first phase of work completed. And it means that we can come in and do some of the kind of rotational improvement of this space that was part of the original planning. So I guess I would open it up for discussion on this one. This is good news. It means all 6 buildings will be sprinkled, which is excellent.
Questions, anyone?
I'm still reading the explanation here. So
Okay.
this became quite a complicated transaction.
Yeah, it got very expensive too. Remember when we
Yeah.
put it out for bid, Jody, it came in at like,
Yeah,
it was twice the original cost. It was like staggering, and it was a really good decision just to pull back and wait and to rebid it. And then I think because Steve is embedded in the Fails project and so much construction work himself, getting to a place where we read the market and pushed it back out for rebid came in very much more advantageous to us, and then allowed us to marry it to the other appropriations and accomplish the project.
So in the explanation here, I see in the second line to the bottom, did the engineer's original estimate and the amount needed for the project was now $1.5 million. Is that going to be the end cost when we add up the original appropriation and then the 2 increases, including this free cash we're approving in this meeting?
I gotta add it up. I believe so.
I'm not sure.
Hang on.
The 1.5 wasn't adding up for me.
Yeah.
Well, 1.5 was after the article passed. That's what the actual bid came in, wasn't it?
So I'm just doing the math too here. I think the actual total cost is lower than the one needed for the roads now. Where it says here, however, so actually the total cost is what these numbers add up to. The original estimate when it came in was the 1.5 million. But when you add up these 3 numbers, that actually is the differential, the cost. So it says here, like when it originally went out, the original estimate, it was like 1.5 million. The most recent bid on February 24th brings it to what the actual total is. But
The sum of these 3 numbers.
The sum of the 3 numbers.
No,
Yep, it looks-
just north of 930, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to suggest, if you're working with Christy on this article,
Yeah.
that number be worked into this explanation, the actual.
Yeah. I think it's in the motion. I would agree with you. And so I think that the motion has the clean number and this has the history, but I can certainly, that would certainly be in the presentation or it can go in the warrant. I'll touch base with her after this meeting.
Okay, that sounds good.
I mean, it's just good news that we were able to push that number substantially back down.
Yeah.
Other
Any
questions?
So I think, so the total is right around 900,000
Yeah.
instead of
1.5 million.
1.5 million. Which
Yeah.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah. And I apologize that I'm not speaking crisply about it. It has moved around a lot. And so I will make sure I clean up my language on it when we discuss it. I mean, I have to prep slides for it. I'm sure there'll be questions. So it's good to talk it through.
Anything else? Folks, AFC, anything? Irene, Kristen, any comments that you'd like to add?
No, I just want to say, we always appreciate your questions and your feedback. And, we were happy to see that we were able to, pay for the softball field upgrades within monies that we have. This year has been like no other and always surprises. And so this is a positive surprise, even though, it means that our teachers weren't able to leverage their professional development this year. We were able to, set aside that money for something else. So I'm pleased with that, and always pleased with the questions that AFC has for us. And now I see some hands up.
Paul, are you raising?
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to say I've been following the school committee meetings, most of them, and so I've watched the progress on the budget, but more importantly, all the other stuff, and it's just amazing work you've all done this year, and especially with all the controversies that we don't see if we don't have kids in the schools, maybe, but it's just amazing. And the other thing I'd like to say is I wish you were still virtual meetings. It's a lot easier to follow them than watching a lot of people from a distance with masks on.
Yeah, no, I know
follow suit.
Yeah, no, there's some pros and cons, but one, I appreciate that you watch the meetings, and two, that's very kind of you. Thank you. It has been an extraordinary, more up to a year and a half now. I mean, it's been an extraordinary experience. So thanks.
And I ditto everything that Kristen and Amber has said, and appreciate the opportunity to come in to, have this discussion with you and Amber's presentation. It's been very helpful to get the feedback questions so that we can anticipate that the larger group might present to us at town meeting. So thank you.
Thank you. Walter?
Yes, thanks. First thing is just I'd like to echo Paul's comment. I think you guys are doing an incredible job. The one thing is, Amber, would you be possible to send the slide deck so it could include it in our record?
Yep.
And second, I wanted to wish Irene a happy retirement, because I understand she's leaving, and we certainly wish her well. Wish you well. She's still here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Has there been progress on, I don't want to call it a replacement, but someone that's
Yeah,
going to be here
that's so
and
kind.
stay?
Yeah, yes. So thank you. And I this will be Irene's final town meeting, and so we actually are making an announcement tomorrow. So I will make sure I share it forward to you. I'm very pleased that while we will miss the skill set, Irene and I have worked very closely together now for 7 years. I feel like we're bringing someone to the district that will continue the good work. So I'll make sure I forward it to you, and you guys can share it around tomorrow.
Okay.
Amber, before you and your team leave, one final question for you. I asked you this question when we met back in January. You are confident that fiscal 22's budget is going to level service the expectation of education for all of our children in Westborough?
Yes, I am. I mean, it's getting to a place of creative cutting that's becoming harder and harder, but I just have to say, I feel like that we as a group, you as an AFC, the town and the schools have been evolving in our work at a very high level, where the collaboration around strategic planning for budgeting for the good of the town is exciting work to me. And we want to be players at that table. We're very committed, but I'm also a superintendent who's very committed to excellence at a high level, and I would not compromise our families or our faculty. I have big ambitious dreams about what each district year needs to look like, and I won't relinquish those. You'll definitely see requests from me at some time in the future, but in the middle of this year and next year, it's not that future. But we'll continue to make sure we're focused on excellence. Yes.
Thank you. Thanks very much, folks. We appreciate spending time.
Michael, Zafar has a question. It looks
Zafar, thank you. Zafar?
Yeah, hi. I didn't have too many questions. I'm just new in the process and trying to learn things first before I speak. But Amber, Kristen, and all of the people involved in this wonderful job. And I'm a system-based person. You can't have a system in this last 2 years. You can imagine it's so difficult with so many children and the staff there. I know how hard it has been at my hospitals, how to manage stuff. You cannot create a system. It's things change every week, every month. The new guidelines coming from the government, and you have to follow some of these things. But good job. That's all. I have to say. But I'm also like a lot of people in the AFC. Very money-minded person in terms of how things go in the town, and do my research before I speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zafar.
Thank you. And Dr. Z, I just want to reach out and say, as a new member to this group, if you'd ever like to sit down with me and the superintendent, just to kind of look at how we budget and, how that all comes together, we're happy to go through that with you.
Thank you very much.
And Melanie as well, because I think Melanie, obviously everybody comes and up speeds very, very quickly, but we usually have had more opportunities for some in-person opportunities to dig deeply into questions. So I know we need to send you enrollment numbers and, look at the sub hours, but none of those questions are ever bothering us. You can email them as they occur to you and we'll push information to you.
Amber, I'm new too, so I want that attention. We've known each other for too many years.
We have. You don't feel new to me. You're like, yes.
Well, you may have to put together a tutorial, Amber.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it'll be interesting because you guys will also be onboarding a new director of finance with me. So it's a good time for us to revisit, some of the process. And I'm sure that the new director will have areas where they want to make change. And so there's exciting things ahead. So that'll be good.
I look forward to in-person meetings, and so that we can be in the same room. I feel like it's so helpful. It's helped us a lot just to be in the same room, even though we're mass. And I understand what you're saying, Paul, about being, so far away. But for us, in doing our business at our meeting, being in person is a game changer. So.
Yeah.
Interesting, because I was going to broach that subject with our committee tonight. But
well, we
thank you for opening the door.
Well, we went first and we survived, so
yeah. All right, everybody. We know you have other business. Thank you so much.
Take care. So much.
Good night.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, did you have a comment, Jody?
Just that we skipped over the minutes.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
I didn't know how long we were going to go with the presentation and the questions, so.
Yep, this is good.
We can move to the minutes in a second. I think let's spend the next few days ruminating on what we heard tonight, and we can revisit it on Monday if there are any other issues that we want to talk about. We do have Christy coming next Thursday. Before we get to the minutes, we did get some really good news today from the state level. We don't yet, and I guess until we hear ka-ching of the cash register, it's probably best if we not anticipate what that money is going to be spent for. I'm sure town leadership is going to come forward with a spending plan. The really good news was that if it does happen, as Christy suggested in her email today, taxes will be substantially lower than they were last year or the year before. I think we're at 329 best case scenario with the new with what we heard today. But let's wait and see what town leadership comes up with, and then we can discuss it as a committee. Yes, Walter.
You mean increase will be less than last year's increase.
Sorry. Yeah, you get tongue-tied with this
You
stuff.
had me a little excited there for a second.
Thank you for correcting me. Okay.
Hank's hand is up.
Yes, Hank.
Leah prepares I call it a recap sheet. I'm not sure that's the right terminology, but it's a single sheet or two sheets that shows expected revenues and expected planned budgeted expenditures. And it also summarizes what the net result of various draws from the enterprise funds are going to be. Mm-hmm. And the last one we have is now way out of date. There have been numerous changes in the expected revenues. It would be really nice to get copies of those sheets.
Funny you should speak about that, Hank.
Go along with the budget information.
Yeah, funny you should speak about that, but I did get a recap sheet, which I will share with you guys. I'll try to get it out to you tomorrow. And it's what we use to discuss the decrease in revenue expectations or from in local town businesses, et cetera, last Monday. So I will get that out to you. I do have it. And then we can pick it up again on Monday, Hank, if you want to do that.
Mike?
Yes.
Are we still working on version 7 of the warrant? Is that the last one you have?
That's the last one I have. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay. So can we move on to the minutes? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of April 12th?
Motion to approve the minutes of April 12th.
Second?
I second.
That was Andrew.
No, Andrew's not on.
Zephyr.
It was Zephyr. Okay. Thank you, Zephyr.
I started the process.
Very good. Okay, Ms. Bloomberg.
Bloomberg, yes.
I'm sorry. Ms. Board? Ms. Board? Mute. She's muted.
Melanie, you're on mute.
Melanie?
Hear me now?
Yeah. Now. Yes, we're voting on the minutes, Melanie.
Yeah, I know what we're doing. Board, yes. See, my husband likes me mute. That's
Okay. A little TMI there, but okay. Ms. Hensley.
Hensley, yes.
Mr. Ugal.
Yes.
Mr. Leslie.
Leslie, yes.
Mr. Rauch.
Roush, yes.
Dr. Siddiqui.
Siddiqui, yes.
And Beretti, yes. Okay, moving right along. We've got future draft agendas. Other than what's on the schedule, does anybody else have anything else to suggest?
Just when we're gonna do our votes, and if we're hearing from the town manager on Thursday, the 22nd, will we be ready to complete our votes on Monday, the 26th?
Votes on the what? The warrant articles?
Yep.
No, the warrant won't close until the 27th.
Okay.
So on the schedule, the calendar that I suggested, it's the 29th that we vote.
Okay.
Thursday following.
Great.
And
Okay.
I'm glad we went through each of the articles as we did. I think there's still one or two that we might have to circle back to, but I think we can move ahead with alacrity on the 29th. Anything else on future agendas? I'm going to start writing, to the extent that I can, the R&R. And then once I have a first draft, I'll circulate it to everybody for comments, edits, et cetera. And I have no pride of authorship. So it's from the full committee. We want it to be the words we want it to be. Okay? So, any liaison reports? Any public reminders?
Wait, I do have a liaison report,
Okay. Oh,
but
thank you, Melanie.
it's kind of brief. I talked to the chief on Tuesday, but I was at work and he was also busy. When I'm trying to circle back to that 15,000 or so that was an additional, I forgot what he wrote for, but anyway. And so I think Paul had the question when we met on Monday regarding the cost. It doesn't, the 15,000 he's talking about with the loss of a fire person and replacement is not solely just the turnout gear. It's some other supplementary things that they need to do the job. And so that's where the cost is greater than, I think, when the numbers are divided out. There's 45 on the force. They already have turnout gear for some of those. That's why the article is only for 33 sets, additional sets.
I think the math didn't add, but
Right.
What I'm saying is when we did the division, I think Paul came up with $2,800 round numbers. And then when we looked at the cost of outfitting one new firefighter, obviously there was a substantial difference. So is what you're saying that this new firefighter has other equipment needs that we have to purchase over and above?
That's how I understood it. But again, it was a very brief conversation. The chief was willing to put together a breakdown if we feel like we need that sort of presentation. He could put together a slide presentation. I didn't know if we wanted him to go through that kind of effort.
Does anybody feel the need for the chief to do that?
I just think it sounds like the other article is very specific to certain layers of clothing or something, and maybe a new firefighter needs like helmet, boots, I don't know, whatever, uniforms, stuff that isn't in that, maybe other pieces of gear. And so they aren't just buying that person 2 sets of what's in the other article, they're buying them more stuff.
If that's the case, if it costs us 15,000 every time we have turnover, it sounds like we really should look at ways to reduce turnover, because it's that's money better spent on salary or somewhere else than on throwing things away that a new person can't use. That does still seem very high, but I don't know what all that equipment is. But I've never heard that before, that it costs 15,000 every time they have a.
I guess I'm not inclined to need a whole PowerPoint presentation from them, but it would be nice at least to have a couple of numbers there of what it is.
Yeah, how it breaks out would be interesting. Yeah.
Okay, Melanie, can you again circle back to the chief for some detail? We don't need him to come in. I don't believe. We don't need a PowerPoint. Just a brief explanation so we could, reconcile in our own minds the differential.
Okay.
I think one of the ways to put it is that he has this $15,000 grant that he applied for. What is he spending it on, and how is it different than the money we're spending on the second gear?
Anything else? Any other liaison? Public reminders. Beth?
Oh, I do have a public reminder.
Okay.
Go for it, Jody.
Yeah, the master plan is ready for its final round of public input. And that is available at the town website. If you just go to the master planning page, it's a survey now. There's been goal setting, there has been selected actions, and this final phase is on implementation. So they're asking for public input on the implementation plans, and specifically how to implement the actions that have been identified and who to involve in the town government and in the community in the implementation. So anybody who can go to the town website, look at the Westborough master plan and take that final public survey. And I'll send it along to all my colleagues here on the AFC with the links embedded. And if you could share that with your circles, I'd appreciate that as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Jody.
So the standard socially distance, wear masks, get vaccinated, and stay healthy.
Stay healthy. Yep, from your mouth to God's ears, as they say. Anything else before we motion to adjourn?
So we're meeting Monday,
We're meeting Monday, yes.
19th.
Okay.
Yes.
Motion to
Motion
adjourn.
adjourn. Hank? Yep.
I'll
Second,
second that motion to adjourn.
Ms. Blumberg.
Blumberg, yes.
Ms. Board.
Board, yes.
Ms. Hensley.
Hensley, yes.
Mr. Ugal.
Yes.
Mr. Leslie.
Yes.
Mr. Rauch.
Roush, yes.
Dr. Siddiqui.
Siddiqui, yes.
And Beretti, yes. Thank you very much, everyone. See you Monday evening, 7 o'clock.
Have a great weekend. Thanks.